The following episode of Heal with Kelly features discussions about child sexual abuse and personal body safety education. The content may be sensitive and potentially triggering for some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. The information shared in this episode is intended for informational and educational purposes and should not replace professional advice or guidance. If you need to disclose sexual abuse, please seek help from a trusted professional or contact local authorities.
I mean, there's so much we can get into, but I think let's get into the story first of what's in the diary and led to Erin's law. And then we'll talk about your own personal healing journey even before that happened.
Yeah.
That makes this even all the more ironic.
Yeah, definitely. Well, when I was a young child, around, it was 6 years old, I met my best friend. Her name was Ashley, and I went off to kindergarten, and it was Ashley's house that I had my first overnight. And with Ashley, I noticed her life was a little different than mine. She came from a family with a dad not in the picture, where I came from a family, 3 girls, mom and dad, lake house that we went to every weekend. And so Ashley asked me to spend the night, and I had never slept over anywhere. My mom's like, you can call me if you get homesick and you want us to come pick you up, change your mind, but I was excited. Ashley had the dollhouse I didn't have. But that night I went to sleep, and my life forever changed. There was a man living in the house, and that was her uncle. And that night, while I was sleeping, he came into the bedroom, and for the first, not last time, sexually abused me. And that's where my life story began, of my innocence being stolen and finding out this world is not the world I thought it was.
Whew. And so what happened from there?
So this man threatened me to keep it a secret, and I continued to stay silent. When Ashley asked me to spend the night again, I said no, and I feared what would happen, if I told anybody. And then first grade rolls around, she's asking me to sleep over again, but I wasn't the only one sleeping over. There was going to be another little girl, so we all slept on the ground that night. But before we went to sleep, that uncle of hers came in once again and sexually abused me and both of them. And something I tell parents, educators, legislators, if they're doing it to one kid, it's very likely they're doing it to multiple. If they're not being stopped, they're going to keep abusing kids. And that's exactly what this man did, and threatened me. This is our little secret. Don't tell anybody. Eventually got to the point of the threats were telling me he was going to burn our house down. If I told anybody what he did, he was going to burn my whole family in there, never see him again. And so living with that fear, I stayed silent as the abuse got worse and worse. And what only started off happening at overnights and during the day, nothing ever happened, soon changed and turned into, play dates at our house. Went from playing in a dollhouse to being locked in a bedroom and brutally raped. I could tell you the color shirt the man was wearing when I was 6.5, 7 years old, the shoes I wore that day, and the threats he made as I left that bedroom, that I'll come get you, don't you stay away, I'll come find you. And my best friend making me pinky promise her, don't tell anybody what he does. He tells me we'll be homeless if I get him thrown in jail. So she stayed silent. And I had all the behavior problems of an abused kid, even to the point of, 2 weeks after that rape, my sister pushed me back on my grandparents' couch, the same exact way this man had pushed me back on a bed. And I suddenly went from being in my grandparents' house to reliving this man on top of me, suffocating me with a pillow and raping me. And I'll never forget, I couldn't make it stop, reliving that whole scene, so I'm banging on my grandparents' door that led outside. And I was banging so hard, my hand went through the window. Grandpa's now rushing me to the emergency room. There's blood everywhere. I'm into emergency surgery, stitched up. Wake up thinking I'm in so much trouble, to a pink cast, and my dad sitting there. And I'm like, sorry, I broke the window, I'm sorry. Well, social workers, psychologists at the school got involved. They gave me a label at school with the IEP still got the paperwork, a behavior and emotionally disturbed child. Erin needs to find 3 proper ways to deal with her anger, and the list goes on. Oof. But they weren't getting to the root of why I was so angry and why I was behaving and acting out the way I was. And I wasn't having that police officer that came in every year and taught us stranger danger. Don't go look for the lost puppy. Showed us the same video. Don't take candy from a stranger. 90% of the time, it is not strangers hurting our kids. It is someone you know and trust. But I never got that message. I learned tornado drills, bus drills, fire drills every year, twice a year, mandated in schools. They teach us DARE in 6th grade. 8 ways to say no to drugs. But where are the 8 ways teaching kids on how to get away until today? The only education I got, and so many kids got, is don't tell anybody. I'll come hurt you. I'll kill you. Kill your family. And the only reason my abuse ended is because we moved. And I was never to see that man again. Keeping his secret.
And then you moved, and then something else happened.
Yes. Little did I realize by moving was getting me that much closer to the next perpetrator in my life. Not that stranger that I continue to be warned about every year. No, this time someone even closer than a neighbor. The older teenage cousin that lived down the street. I woke up spending the night in my grandparents' condo in Wisconsin with a whole bunch of other cousins, and I was the first to fall asleep, only to wake up in the middle of the night to him sexually abusing me. And I literally was freaking out thinking this is not happening right now. Coming from a family of all girls, I looked up to this older cousin as the brother I never had. And I saw him weekly because he lived down the street. I walked past his house every day on the way to school. And I tried to convince myself when I woke up the next morning, this didn't happen. He didn't mean to do this. He did it in his sleep. But I didn't want to make eye contact with him. And I'll never forget that whole day where we went to lunch, my aunt picking us up, taking us home. And when I got home, I turned to my little pink childhood diary and I opened it up. And in the back pages, I wrote, September 1996, I'm really scared and confused. Something happened last night, but I don't know who to tell. Another 6 months would go by and nothing would happen. And it was like I kind of just pushed it down because it reminded me of that moment of when I was 6 being abused. But nothing happened after that, and I was around him. But then 6 months later, my aunt, his mother, starts stopping me, I'm now 12, to watch her 2 younger sons. I'm going to run to the grocery store and pick up a few things. These short little spur of 45 minutes, she was going to be gone. And suddenly now her teenage son is coming home after he sees his mother leave and finding ways to lock me in bedrooms, basements, closets, garages, you name it, sexually abuse me, threaten me. Erin, no one will believe you. This is our little secret. You'll destroy our family if you tell anyone. And we came from a huge family. Our parents were one of 7 siblings, tons of cousins. So the holidays, there was 40 of us there. And so I just continued to write about it in my diary. There were times he was abusing me with his 2 little brothers, their backs to us as they're playing Nintendo. And once again, the only message I'm getting is to keep it a secret. So that's what I did. And I just filled the back of my diary, one entry after another, of what was going on. And as it was gradually getting worse, because there was times he was had more and more time alone with me, soon it went from holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas. I'm upstairs locked in a bedroom with all my relatives downstairs, have no idea what's going on. It's Thanksgiving dinner, and I'm in a garage locked in there being abused. I wished someone had taught me how to speak up and tell, but the only message I got was from my perpetrators, and that was to stay silent, that I would be harmed, that I would not be believed, and that this would be my fault. So I didn't speak up. Instead, kept it a secret, and have now made it my mission to give kids the voice that I never had.
And thinking back, how did your personality develop as a result? Were you questioning, this must be my fault, it's happened twice, it's with 2 different people,
Mm-hmm. What did I do to deserve? Yes.
How did that shape your personality as a young woman going through an already tremendously challenging time?
I remember just thinking, why is this happening to me again? Why do I deserve this? I felt like I do have a target on my back. Why does this keep happening to me? And I went to, by the time I was, 12, 13, and this was continuing to go on, became really depressed, trying to avoid being around, family, fearing, any interaction with him, not wanting to go to their house anymore. But yes, my whole self-esteem just crumbled. My grades dropped. I was just a miserable mess. And at the end of 6th grade, I will never forget where I was standing during our spring break walking up the road. And my 11-year-old sister turns to me and blurts out the words, "Brian's gross." Brian is that teenage cousin. And I knew in that instant, I looked at her and I said, he's doing it to you too? And we sat on the trampoline and she told me one incident after another, including the same holidays, where he was sexually abusing me, he was sexually abusing her. And I was filled with so much anger and rage, but there was this hope that night that I felt of someone's going to believe us now. It's not just me coming forward. And we told our parents the next day. I didn't tell them what happened when I was 6, 7, and 8. There was no way I could after I saw the reaction I got from my mother bawling her eyes out, feeling like she failed us. What did I do wrong? And my dad leaving work, and the first things he said as he walked into the kitchen when he left work, he looked at me and said, why didn't you tell me he was doing this to you? I said, Dad, because he told me you and everybody else wouldn't believe me and I'd be called a liar. And so I feared that. I feared I had no proof. And so my dad had the difficult task of walking over to his sister's house that night and having to have this very difficult conversation. And literally, the one thing my cousin was right about was I was believed, but it destroyed our family.
Thank you for listening to the Heal with Kelly podcast. Be sure to tune in every Thursday for more empowering wisdom and inspiring healing stories. And make sure you hit the follow button on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss that one episode that holds the answer you've been searching for. Oh, and if you found this episode inspiring, please rate, review, and share Heal with Kelly so that we can grow our audience and reach more people. We truly appreciate it. Lots of love.